You know, everyone loves to talk about how to get rich. That's the exciting conversation, right? But today, we're going to tackle something much harder, and honestly, way more important: how to not be poor.
So, what even is poverty? Is it just about not having enough cash in the bank? I mean, that's what most people think. If you just had more money, problem solved. But the research this explainer is based on, well, it shows that's just not the whole story. Not even close.
So if it's not just a lack of money, what is it? Think of it like a force of nature, like gravity. It's this powerful pull that's constantly trying to suck you back in. It's a closed-loop system that feels like it's designed to make you spin your wheels until you're just completely out of gas.
To get away from a planet's gravity, a rocket has to hit this critical speed called escape velocity. Now here's the crazy part. If it only hits 99% of that speed, it doesn't get 99% of the way to the moon. No, it falls all the way back down to Earth. And that is the perfect way to think about escaping poverty. Just working a little bit harder, that linear effort usually isn't enough. You need a massive exponential push to finally break free.
So let's start with the physics of this problem. Look, the system isn't rigged against you because of some cartoon villain in a secret room. It's just cold, hard math.
And this is the cruelest irony of all. Being poor is expensive. You end up paying more for food because you can't afford to buy in bulk. You get hit with late fees because you're just a day short on a bill. You pay way higher interest rates because you're seen as a risk. It's like you're being forced to run a marathon with a 50-pound backpack on.
This whole idea is captured perfectly in what's called the Vimes boots theory from the author Terry Pratchett. Here's how it goes. A rich man buys a pair of $50 boots that last him 10 years. The poor man, he can only afford $10 boots, and they fall apart after a year. So over that same decade, the poor man ends up spending $100, double the price, and he has wet feet the whole time. It just shows how not having that initial capital forces you to bleed money in the long run.
But look, the forces holding you down aren't just out there in the world. The source material for this is really clear that some of the strongest chains are the ones we actually forge inside our own minds.
This brings us to a concept called the scarcity tax. It's not a tax you pay with dollars. You pay it with your brain power. The idea is that poverty isn't just a lack of cash, it's a lack of mental space. When your mind is constantly juggling worries about rent, the car payment, groceries, it goes into survival mode. There's just no room left for long-term thinking. Your brain is completely maxed out.
And the cost of this is staggering. Research out of Harvard found that this constant financial stress drops your effective IQ by about 13 points. To put that in perspective, that's like losing a full night of sleep every single night, or functioning as a low-level alcoholic. You're trying to solve incredibly complex financial problems with a processor that's been seriously downgraded.
So, how do you fight back against that? You build a buffer. Your very first goal isn't to get rich, it's just to scrape together a small emergency fund. $1,000, maybe even $500. And that money, it's not for a vacation, it's an investment in your own mind. It buys you back your brain power. It turns a potential catastrophe into just an inconvenience. And it finally gives you the breathing room to stop reacting and start planning.
All right, the next internal trap, this one's a doozy. It's the dopamine trap. See, when your life is incredibly stressful and you feel like you're losing all the time, your brain craves a win, any win. And buying something new, a phone, a pair of sneakers, it gives you a short, powerful hit of that feel-good chemical, dopamine. It's not really about spending, it's about self-medicating. The only problem is, the relief is temporary, but the debt, that's permanent.
And this leads to this huge split, right? A fundamental difference in how we see money. Is money for buying temporary pleasure, a quick hit of relief, or is money a tool for buying future freedom? The first path, that leads to buying liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket. The second path leads to buying assets, things that put money in your pocket.
So the solution proposed is basically a detox for your brain. It's called monk mode. For a set period of time, a month, 3 months, whatever, you radically cut out all non-essential spending. This isn't about punishing yourself, it's about putting yourself in training. You are actively rewiring your brain to get that dopamine hit from seeing your savings account grow, not from buying more stuff you don't need. You're breaking the system's psychological hold on you.
Okay, so we've covered the internal battleground. Now, let's zoom back out and look at the powerful forces in your environment that are basically designed to keep you stuck right where you are.
Most of us are caught in what's called the linear income trap. This means your income is tied directly to the hours you work. You work more, you earn more. Simple, right?
But here's the fatal flaw. There are only so many hours in a day. Time is finite. So there is a hard, physical ceiling on how much you can ever earn. And all the while, inflation is this silent thief, eating away at your money's value. You end up working harder and harder just to stay in the same place.
So how do you escape that? You build a skill stack. The idea is, instead of trying to be the absolute #1 best in the world at one thing, you get pretty good at 2 or 3 completely unrelated things. Think about it. A construction worker who also learns sales doesn't just build houses anymore. They can run the whole business. You combine your skills to become rare, to become valuable. And that's how you finally detach your income from the hours you put in.
Now we come to maybe the hardest trap to break of all, social gravity. You've heard the saying that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Well, when you start to change, when you try to escape, your friends might not be your biggest cheerleaders. They might, consciously or not, try to pull you back down. It's not because they're bad people. It's because your escape highlights the fact that they're still in the cage. It makes them uncomfortable.
The solution here is you have to curate your influences. Now, this doesn't mean you abandon your family and friends, but it does mean you have to be ruthless about protecting your mindset. Thanks to books, podcasts, and online content, you can spend time with the greatest minds in history. You can choose to be the average of the authors you read, not just the people who happen to live in your zip code.
Okay, let's get to the final piece of the puzzle, the engine. How do you actually build the machine that's going to generate that final escape velocity? How do you turn the math of the system to work for you instead of against you?
You've probably heard Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. And with this force, you are always on one of two sides. There is no middle ground. You are either the person paying it on your credit card debt and your loans, waking up a little bit poorer every single day, or you are the person earning it on your assets, waking up a little bit richer.
The plan to get on the winning side of that equation has 3 clear stages. Stage 1 is survival. You just stop the bleeding. You attack all of your high-interest debt. Stage 2 is accumulation. You start buying productive assets. Something as simple as a low-cost index fund, which is just a way to own a tiny piece of hundreds of successful companies. And then finally, stage 3, freedom. This is the moment your assets are generating enough income to cover your basic needs. That right there, that is escape velocity.
So let's just recap those 5 big chains, right? There's the mental chain of the scarcity tax, the emotional chain of the dopamine trap, the mathematical chain of the linear income trap, the social chain of gravity from your peers, and finally, being on the wrong side of the compound interest equation. These are the forces holding you down. But the key is, every single one of them can be broken.
Because when you get right down to it, these chains are forged in the mind. The system, your environment, maybe even your own fear. They all want you to believe that the cage is locked and the key is lost. But the truth is, the door has always been open. The only real question left is, do you have the courage to walk through it?